Coming up on This Week in Radio Tech, Shane Toven is here, Chris Tarr as usual, and Carl Campbell is with me. He's the Nashville chapter chair for our SBE chapter. We're talking about how to restart your SBE chapter, how to get enthusiasm back for meetings, what to do, what to talk about, maybe where to meet. It's all coming up next on TWiRT.
This Week in Radio Tech is brought to you by Broadcasters General Store with outstanding service, savings, and support. Online at bgs.cc. By Broadcast Bionics with the Bionic Studio, including talk show control, social media, and visual radio. Broadcast Bionics brings exceptional audience engagement to radio and TV. By Angry Audio. Audio problems disappear when you get angry at angryaudio.com. By Nautel, worry-free transmission you can count on with outstanding control, reliability, efficiencies, and Nautel's unmatched 24/7 customer support. Online at nautel.com. And by Max Connect Wireless, prioritized high-speed internet service designed for transmitter sites and remote broadcasts.
Hey, welcome into This Week in Radio Tech, the show where we talk about everything from the microphone to the light bulb at the top of the tower, or the mod monitor on the laptop behind me, or Carl Campbell, local radio engineer here in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm Kirk, glad you're here. I'm not in the usual Telos Alliance studio. I am in the Telos Alliance living room here in Nashville. This is my living room. So we had, well, I'll tell you what, I'll get to what we had here and why I'm up here in a little bit. But let's introduce you to my co-host. You know him. You love him. Who doesn't love him? It's Chris Tarr. Hey, Chris. Welcome in.
Hey there. So do you go from the Telos Alliance living room to the Telos Alliance bathroom, then over to the Telos Alliance refrigerator? How does that work? I'm trying to pin all that.
Hey, I've even got Telos Alliance bath salts, baby. I am just fully immersed.
Oh, don't know
I
if
got
I
the
needed
shirt.
to know that.
See, I'm wearing the
very
shirt
nice.
right there. Yeah.
Very nice. It looks good. Very spiffy.
I'm not going to show you my Telos Alliance underwear.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Although, why is that any different from any other day when you actually do that?
Not sure what that means. Okay, Chris.
Well, you know,
go ahead.
Oh, you're looking for the weather report.
Well, yeah, I was going to tell you mine first. I'll show mine
Okay,
first.
go ahead.
It has been unbelievably hot and humid again here in Nashville. The airport right now reports, we had rain come through. It's down to 82. Well, that sounds cool, but the humidity is crazy. We had thunderstorm warnings through here, and I was cooking lunch for 11 people, if you include me. I was cooking lunch on the grill outside in the pouring rain, doing my best to position the umbrellas on the patio, out there on the deck, actually, to cover me up and not let too much rain hit the hamburger patty. So it was quite a sight. And I'll tell you more about why I had 10 people here at my house in a few minutes. Chris, how about your weather report? What's up there?
All right, out here, it's not too bad. It's mid 80s. We had a ton of rain, like some flooding here a couple of days ago. It's dried out now, and actually it's very, very nice. And I'm here in my secret lair with still have the balloons here too for my daughter's birthday. We left them here. So there you go. I that way I can have a celebration anytime I want.
I take it the dog doesn't run after the balloons and bounce them around and pop a few?
Here's the thing. The dog is elderly, and I don't know that he runs after anything other than food.
Don't call me late for dinner. Let's see if we can get a weather report. I don't know where this guy is. He may have told me. I forgot. In one ear, out the other. Shane Toven is with us. Hey, Shane, welcome in.
Hey, Kirk. Well, I am in beautiful Laramie, Wyoming, where we actually go from sunny to storms and downpours and Pete, a marble-sized hail. So take your pick. If you don't like the weather, wait 5 seconds. It'll change.
Yeah. I've been to Laramie. It was years ago before you ever moved there. I love the town. What a gorgeous town. May I ask why you're back in Laramie?
I am back in Laramie to troubleshoot a very odd issue with the local station's transmitter. It's not one that I've encountered before, but we can talk about that later if you'd like.
Oh, okay, sure. Hey, well, and with me here is Carl Campbell. Hi, Carl. Welcome in.
Thank you, Kirk, for having me.
Thank you for joining me here in my living room. And being willing to come on the show. When I first asked you, you were a bit like, I don't know.
Well, I'm here and I'm happy to be part of it.
I've been knowing you for ever since I moved to Nashville. I think it's been 21 years, something like that.
Approximately, yes. That's correct.
And tell me about what you do for a living. What kind of engineering are you doing?
I'm the Director of Engineering for Salem Music Network, which is a part of the Salem Media Group out of California. We have 3 local FM stations, and we also originate 2 syndicated music networks, which we distribute to approximately 200 affiliates across the country.
So you've got your local Salem stations here. Are they? Do some of them share a format, or are they 3 different formats?
No, it's a trimulcast. They're all the same.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're known as 94 FM The Fish, which is a Salem for contemporary Christian music, basically.
Yeah. But you originate music networks from here, which means that the music actually played here. The talent on those shows is here in Nashville.
Correct.
And then you ship that out to a satellite uplink. Yeah.
That is correct, right? It's distributed over our satellite link, and we have affiliated radio stations that carry us. Some all the time, and some during certain day parts. But we are happy to have them, regardless of how much they carry us.
What are the different formats that you originate here for other affiliates to carry?
We have one called Today's Christian Music, which is your contemporary format that you hear on The Fish and other stations like that. Uh-huh. And then we have the second format is The Word and Praise, which is more choir music and church music, live music done in a live format.
When I first met you years ago, it seems like you guys also had a Southern gospel format, right?
We did. We had a Southern gospel format called Solid Gospel. And then we changed the name to Singing News Radio Network because there was an associated magazine. We published a magazine along with that product, and unfortunately, we sold that business unit back a year ago in August.
Well, somebody gave up some money to buy it.
For sure. Yeah, it's still a local group, but we no longer provide that programming.
So the reason we're all here together today, me, Chris Tarr, Shane Toven, thanks Shane for coming on last minute and adding to our conversation, and Carl Campbell and me, the reason we're all here together is the topic at hand is something that happened today, at least here in Nashville, right here in this room, and that is we restarted face-to-face meetings of the Nashville chapter of the Society of Broadcast Engineers. So and Carl is the chapter chair. So are you going to run for office again for chapter chair?
I suppose so. If they want me to, I will. Yeah.
And I've been the program chair. And so anyway, since we've been under COVID and with all the lockdowns we had earlier and the social distancing, our chapter hasn't met since, was it maybe March of
2020? It's been over 2 years.
Wow.
Over 2 years. So today was a great day.
Wow. Hey, so let's check in with Chris Tarr. How long did you go without a face-to-face SBE meeting?
Well, sadly, kind of our chapter for now is kind of dissolved because of it. They're just things kind of fell apart. So we'll see if we can get things restarted again. But yeah, we haven't had one 2 years, right? Just as COVID started. Yeah. So and there's still a lot. Actually, I think Madison is still doing theirs virtually, as far as I know.
Okay, and all right. Okay, you're going to have some good things to offer to our conversation today. Shane, you travel a lot. What even is your home chapter?
So technically my home chapter is chapter 43 of Sacramento. But I was attending that pretty regularly before COVID hit, and then once that hit, they kind of went dormant for a little while, and now I'm happy to say they are back to meeting in person, and I plan to continue attending there, as often as I'm back in town. So
now, one thing that's interesting. Well, tell you what, we're gonna hear from an important sponsor here for just a minute. And then we're going to come back and talk about, why have so many chapters waited for so long to kind of start meeting again? Is there a loss of enthusiasm, a loss of ideas? I'll tell you why we haven't been able to coming up in a minute, and maybe we can kind of work on some ideas together to help your chapters and those of you in the audience to help. Maybe you have some ideas, or this will give you some ideas to get your chapter back to meeting again. So that's coming up this week in Radio Tech. It's brought to you in part by Nautel. And Nautel has restarted their Transmission Talk Tuesdays. They kind of took June off, but in July, they're doing 3 of these roundtable discussions. So you go to nautel.com/webinars, and from there you can click on the Transmission Talk Tuesday icon. They've got a new one that is coming up this coming Tuesday, the 12th, and it's going to be about AC power, how to talk to your electrician. AC power, how to talk to your electrician. And so if you go to nautel.com/webinars, then that'll lead you right to be able to sign up for that webinar. You'll get an invitation. They'll also remind you a day before, and I think an hour or two before the roundtable discussion. I know it's nautel.com/webinars, but really Transmission Talk Tuesday is a roundtable discussion. That means that if you want to participate in the Q&A or in the discussion or lend an idea yourself, you're welcome to do so. Jeff Welton is the host, and Nautel has done a fantastic service for the industry by providing this forum. Carl, was it you that was saying before the show that you're going to be putting in a Nautel transmitter soon?
Yes, we're going to purchase a 5 kilowatt solid state one to replace an aging Harris. And we're looking forward to receiving that. I don't know when ship date is, but we're anxiously awaiting.
Do you have any other Nautel transmitters now?
Nope, this will be the first one for us.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, good deal. Well, I've got a few of them, and Shane probably goes and visits a number of Nautel transmitters, don't you, Shane?
I do. I have probably more than I can count, actually. And a lot of them are running HD. So, in fact, the one that I'm working on out here right now is a Nautel. So,
all right. And Chris Tarr, I know you've put in a few of these as well. What I love about this company, people like Jeff Welton, they really go all out to try to help the people in the industry learn about not only their transmitters, but about transmission in general. And that's why they do these roundtable discussions. Chris, are you going to be visiting a Nautel this week?
Well, I just put one in and I just ordered another one. So plenty.
Good gosh. All right. Well, thanks, Nautel, for sponsoring This Week in Radio Tech. Remember, go to nautel.com/webinars. All right. Let's talk about why a lot of chapters haven't gotten to be meeting again. And I'll give you this clue. I started getting really clued into, Kirk, you need to take some action here to help the Nashville chapter of the SBE get going again. When I started getting invitations from other SBE chapters to come and speak in person. They didn't want me by remote. Well, they'd take it, but they really wanted me to travel. So I got an invitation, for example, from Tampa, Florida, from their SBE chapter. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, I don't know if we've really got budget right now and blah, blah, blah. And they said, we want you here. We're meeting in person. We want you to be here. Okay. So we've actually worked it out. I'm going to be in Tampa in September to do that. A couple of other chapters have also asked me, Oregon wanted me to do 3 different meetings there in person if I could, remote if I could, but it turns out we aren't going to do a meeting by remote. But it really got me to thinking. The chapters that have asked, I thought, we really here in Nashville need to get back to an in-person meeting. Sure. And so, sorry to hog all the time here, but I'll at least set this up. I thought, actually about a month ago, Carl, I started calling around to some restaurants because guess what, guys? The restaurant that we've been meeting in for several years now, Piccadilly Cafeteria here in Nashville, closed during COVID, and they are not reopening. Carl, do you know what it is now?
I have no idea. I think it was a furniture. Is it a furniture or an appliance?
Appliance
dealership. Yeah.
It's now an appliance showroom, and it's no longer a restaurant. And that's a shame because Piccadilly for us was absolutely perfect.
Yeah. They let us have the run of the place. On the first Thursday of every month is when we'd have our meetings, and we could roll in, get our food, and go back in the conference room. We even hung a projector screen back there so we could do projection if the presenter needed it. And so it was a great place. It was, and we haven't been able to find another place like it. So.
By the way, you know what led to me donating a projector screen to hang on the wall? the projector screen that they had, the portable one, it looked like one that my dad probably went to elementary school with. It was horrible.
Well, it wasn't very big.
That wasn't very big.
Yeah, so
it wasn't very reflective.
That's
It
right.
wasn't very stable.
Yeah, but the one we hung up was a nice one. It was theater sized.
Yeah,
so it served the purpose, and it was a great place to meet and eat and talk about everything. So needless to say, it was sad when we found out that it had closed and wasn't going to reopen. But it's one of the, I guess, the many casualties of COVID.
Well, let's go around the table here. Chris Tarr, your chapter. I guess you you've been going to the Milwaukee chapter. You said they haven't been meeting. What was their venue that they met in, and is that place still available now that we're post-COVID?
And that's part of the issue was that was held at my previous employer in the conference room. So that obviously was no longer an option. And I think the other problem, and we all are kind of dealing with this, is honestly, our chapter, I was one of maybe 2 or 3 non-retired engineers that were actively members of the chapter. So, there wasn't a lot of desire to get together during COVID, and probably even not now. And to be honest with you, I'm one of the few who still is not real comfortable going out in huge crowds. With everything going on, I would actually much prefer to be remote. I think it's every group is different. Obviously, there's issues still with meeting locations. In fact, even now, sure, we could have it at one of my radio stations, but we're even downsizing those because we're no longer going to be doing offices. Everybody's working remotely from here on out. So even finding space now is difficult. But like, for example, one of the other stations in town won't allow it because of the COVID issue. So I think that's part of the challenge for us. And I think we're finding still across the country, as much as everybody would like to get back together, sometimes there are those external issues that are preventing that from happening.
That's a good point. And by the way, I want to be clear that when I use the phrase post-COVID, I don't mean that we're out of the woods. Not at all. I know that people are still getting COVID. In fact, my son, he was clear. He was clear. Ex-wife got it. And other people in her family have recently gotten some form of COVID. At least it hasn't been bad. Yeah. But my daughter is a nurse. Sometimes she works emergency room. She works overnights at a local hospital here in the Nashville area, and they have plenty of COVID patients, still coming in. Some are serious enough to be of a real concern. So when I say post-COVID, it's a convenient phrase, but we're post the worst part of the death. Probably doesn't mean we're completely out of the woods. Yeah, exactly. So Shane, tell me about your meeting location, and if you guys, what's the situation? Was it easy to get the meetings restarted there?
So that's kind of interesting. We actually used to meet, like many chapters did, at a restaurant. We actually met at a Perkins. But after not having in-person meetings for quite some time, I don't even think our chapter did Zoom, quite honestly. I don't think they just kind of went dormant for a while. But they actually just had their first in-person meeting in a long, long time back in the end of June 28th. And they actually did a kind of a tour to kind of kick that off. They didn't actually have like a meeting, meeting location. They just it looks like they met out at a golf course actually. So there was some facility there, I guess, that they had this technology tour at that they did. So, but we've been facing a lot of the same issues that Chris mentioned in terms of the aging of the chapter, in terms of people's even now that a lot of the restrictions have been lifted, people's willingness to kind of come out in person, especially older and those with dealing with risk factors and so on. And it's still a real concern. I mean, I've got a couple of really good friends right now who are in some kind of serious state because of they've got they're dealing with COVID right now. So it's definitely something that people are still concerned about.
All right, so we kind of get an idea of the current state, and that some chapters are getting back together. Some still doing Zoom meetings. Others just kind of lost some enthusiasm through all this because it's work. It's been more work. Back pre-COVID, Hey, if you were a member, you didn't really have to think about, unless you were setting up the meeting or the chapter chair like Carl is. You didn't have to, you just had to show up to eat, right? We all got to eat. We all got to show up, and hey, somebody's planned, a speaker and all that. But it seems like it takes more effort. It takes more concerted effort, even to meet on Zoom. We think that's easy, but it actually does take some setup. Well, anyway, what I want to talk about after this break is what are some of the challenges that we've actually experienced. We've checked into it. We've tried, hey, calling this restaurant, that restaurant. Could we meet at a TV station in a studio or something? And I'll tell you what we did here in Nashville. Some of you already know. And maybe there's some other ideas to throw about there. And then in at least getting restarted, we found another option that sounds really good because somebody cool heard about our challenge. So we're going to have that coming up in just a minute. This week in Radio Tech, I'm here with Carl Campbell. He's the engineer for Salem Music Networks here in Nashville. Shane Toven is here. He's the senior engineer, senior transmission engineer for EMF, Educational Media Foundation. And Chris Tarr is here. He is the big hoo-ha over something big, Magnum Media mostly in Wisconsin. So we're all here. We'll be right back after this fine word from Broadcast Bionics.
Welcome to the Bionic Studio. The Bionic Studio brings all audience interaction to the fingertips of a production team in radio, TV, and podcast. Our workflow-led system is working 24/7 around the world for small broadcasters and national and international networks. Our telephony module, Bionic Talk Show, allows cost-effective centralization, remote operation, scalability, and resilience across an entire network of stations, but at the same time is used in single-studio self-op environments. Social media curation and activity is now considered a broadcast-critical part of programming. Bionic Social means the studio isn't overwhelmed with a wall of interaction from an ever-growing number of social platforms. We combine SMS, MMS, and email together with a speech-to-text service for listeners using smart speakers. We enable studio teams to curate, filter, and display all platforms in one place, and post text, images, and video content to multiple platforms in one operation. Effortless collection of video content with Bionic Director has helped position some of the world's most successful stations as leaders in viral content, generating appointments to listen and free marketing via retweets and shares. Bionic Contest enables end-to-end tracking of on-air competitions, live reads, and prizes. These can be on-air contests, automated SMS entry, or online. Anywhere, and Skype TX for Radio brings high-quality audio and video contribution into the studio with ease. No need for dedicated PCs to run different applications. Everything is controlled within the Bionic Studio UI, and incoming connections are visible to users along with all other platforms. Our codec integration enables connection, algorithm configuration, and directory to a wide range of IP and ISDN codecs. The Bionic Studio, a unique suite of products designed to enable your talent to work smarter.
The Bionic Studio from Broadcast Bionics. So many cool things there. And thank you, Broadcast Bionics, for sponsoring This Week in Radio Tech. And I promise you, if you contact Broadcast Bionics, one way is bionic.radio. That's a web domain, bionic.radio. You'll see a fantastic selection of tools to help you in your broadcast facility for getting social media integrated, like the Camera One system and the whole Bionic Studio system. Cool stuff. All right, we're here with Carl Campbell, Chris Tarr is here, and Shane Toven is here. And Carl, we wanted to get the Nashville chapter restarted. Noticed that Piccadilly Cafeteria was closed. We also, closed down the restaurant we used to use a few years ago, the Ponderosa Steakhouse.
That's right.
They closed that thing down after people got sick. It was not a great restaurant.
I think they sold the property.
Oh, they sold the property. Okay. Yeah, I'm sure it's being put to gooder use now. So I started calling around to different restaurants. There's a local restaurant here in Nashville called Sweats, and it's a meat and three.
Great food.
Yeah,
great. It's one of the best places in town. Yeah,
but their private meeting room is pretty popular.
Yes, and it was hard to get a date that we could do on a regular basis, and also they had a limit. They had they had to have so many people
at Sweats. They they had to have 50 people.
50 people.
Or if you have fewer than 50, they charge you 150 for the room.
Right.
Because they and look, I get if it's popular and they can do that and they need to make money, totally get it. And then other places like Maggiano's, and they're having these minimums as well. What did you find though about maximums?
Well, I don't recall anything specific other than that they had to have a certain number of people in order for us to be able to be there. Yeah. So it was one of those things where every place is a little different, but none of them were able to accommodate our specific needs, and that was the issue, was that either it was going to cost the chapter money or it was going to be hard to schedule. So.
But I thought there were some restaurants that maybe have a meeting room, but it's actually pretty small. And they had like they can only accommodate 15 people. Here in Nashville, we've got about 15 to 18 to 19 that I think will show up for monthly meetings now.
Yes, that the core group that shows up month after month is between 15 and 20 usually. Yeah. So if there was a minimum or a maximum number such as 15, then we wouldn't have enough room basically. Yeah.
So Chris, you said you guys really haven't tried to restart yet. When you do you anticipate finding a place that will accommodate you these days?
Well, that's going to be the hard part. I don't know, what we're going to find in our area. I'm guessing it's probably not going to be at a studio location or anything like that, which is historically what we've done is we've held them in conference rooms of the broadcast facilities, unless there was an on-site tour or something going on. So yeah, we would definitely need to find some place, some public place where we'd be able to get together and do those meetings.
Shane, tell me again about Sacramento. You expect that in-person meetings would be a problem finding an appropriate venue?
Maybe less so. I mean, there are a lot of options there that we can kind of tap from, and it seems like they actually had a pretty good response to this first meeting that they had back at the end of June. Out at the golf course. But I mean, speaking from other groups that I'm involved with, the restaurants. It really depends on the restaurant. The one that I'm in, the one other group that I'm involved with didn't have any problem at all, kind of restarting back where they were before. It really does depend on the market. Depends on the restaurant.
So back to the Nashville chapter, I got frustrated with not being able to conveniently find an appropriate venue.
It was surprising that we had that hard a time. That was the thing, was we didn't expect to have this much difficulty finding another place.
So Kirk Harnack said, darn it, I'm a problem solver. We're going to have a meeting at my house.
That's what we did.
Now, I got to tell you, of course, with COVID, with some personal changes and life changes, I haven't had any events at my house in a long time. And I thought, what better way to motivate me to clean this place up and to, fix a few things around the house and make things look better than to invite a bunch of people over. Now, when I say a bunch of people, Carl, I didn't know if we're going to get 2 or 3 or what?
Correct. I mean, we had some response when we sent out. Kirk sent out a message to everybody on the list, offering this place as a meeting place, and also offering either a lunch or a dinner meeting, and asked for a response. And we got responses on both lunch and dinner. So we're going to. So we're having 2 meetings today. We've already had our lunch meeting. And as soon as we get done here, we're going to start getting ready for the dinner meeting. And so we're hoping for as many people as we had at lunch, but we don't know. We don't know.
Carl's going to bake cookies here in just a little bit. So we put out a survey to the chapter members, only got 7 responses. I thought, well, this is not a good sign. Only got 7 responses. And they were 50, maybe 8 responses. They were 50-50. Yep. Had to be 8. For, hey, well, I want a lunchtime meeting. I want an evening meeting. And so I thought, can we do both? Can we have?
Why not?
Why not? And so we asked. Nobody at SBE that we asked actually knew the answer, but no reason why you couldn't. So the Nashville chapter today is having 2
official meetings.
2 official meetings.
Yeah.
Oh, here, show us the.
Here's the The roster from the lunch meeting right here is for the first time in 2 years, we have actual signatures from the members. I've been filling these out myself for the virtual meetings that we've been having. And that was another thing I meant to say earlier was thanks to Kirk and offering to do the Zoom meetings for us during the shutdown, kept this chapter together, so, and we even did some joint meetings with the Knoxville chapter, try to combine our resources and everybody learned something from the meetings and whatever. And it was a great way to carry on in the face of this pandemic. So
now I will, and I want to hear Chris and Shane, if I know Chris, you experienced something similar. We did a year and a half of Zoom meetings, not every month, but we got almost every month. Yeah. And sometimes Knoxville would handle it. We would just get invited. Sometimes we would handle it. We'd invite Knoxville. So that cut down on the workload. But I'll tell you what, this year, 2022, we hadn't had any meetings yet. Yeah. And that was Zoom or otherwise. And that was kind of my fault. But I had acute bronchitis first of the year, and then I got what I think was COVID, never got tested. And I've been sick or something. It's just been a bad year. It's been a couple of bad years for a lot of us. And so I thought we got to have a meeting. We want to get our chapter meetings in so we stay, up with national, right?
That's correct, right? The requirement to receive the yearly rebate check is you got to have at least 5 meetings a year, 5. So today we're almost halfway there in one day, thank goodness. And so,
we're two meetings in one day.
We'll probably do virtual for the remainder. I'm hoping that we can do another in person by the end of the year. But we've gotten 2 in today. It was great to see these guys for the first time face to face in such a long time. So it's been a glorious day so far.
So we'll get Chris and Shane back here in a second. But I want to say that I was first of all, I was embarrassed about not having put a meeting together for this whole year to this point, not even a virtual meeting. So I thought, I want to clean my house up. I want to invite some people over, and the chapter will reimburse me for the food.
Cook some good food.
I cooked. Hamburgers, hot dogs, bratwurst, some andouille sausage, and then we had corn on the cob in the husk. That was on the grill. That was great. And then we had some banana pudding that was
homemade.
I made a Trisha Yearwood's recipe. And then we had chocolate chip cookies, and then we've got, some standard drinks here, some iced tea and some lemonade and water. And
it's great.
Kind of all right. Great. So at lunch, how many did we have turn out for lunch?
Well, according to the roster, we had 11.
11. That's amazing. Yeah. We had the parking lot. Well, the driveway was full. Yeah. No.
We had to do some ballet to let people out because there were so many cars. So.
My driveway was definitely first in, last out.
That's right.
But but no fights broke out.
No. Everybody was nice.
That's right. All right. So I am so motivated, and we have another meeting of Nashville SBE coming up in about an hour from now. So I have to get those cookies in the oven.
That's right.
So all right. Let's go to Shane. Shane, talk to me about your ideas about getting a chapter remotivated. Whether you have direct experience about this or not, what do you think people should be doing?
Boy, Kirk, I tell you, if you keep having food like that at your meetings, you're going to make me want to move to Nashville sooner rather than later.
Please do. Come on, buddy. Come on.
But as far as getting chapters kind of motivated and restarted, I was the chapter chair of Chapter 48 in Denver for quite a while, and that's a chapter that's kind of had its ebbs and flows over the years. I think one of the important keys is communicate. I know there are several chapters that are really, really good about their newsletters and about their website, but if people don't know, how do you expect them to come? And it sounds like you've been doing a really good job with that in terms of getting things restarted. The second thing would be have something that people actually are interested in, that people actually want to come see. I mean, maybe poll your members and find out what they're interested in, what would really draw them to a meeting. I mean, in Denver, we were a mixed chapter. We actually had a joint SBE and SMPTE chapter, so it leaned kind of television heavy. But a lot of us radio guys, we still kind of managed to have a lot of good radio content as well. So that would be the other thing. Just make sure there's some decent subject matter that people are interested in. And sometimes, quite frankly, you don't really even have to have a program. You could just have it be a night of or a meeting where you all just kind of swap war stories, and those are always fun too. So there are all kinds of options.
Today was the first time in forever we didn't have an official program. The program was let's meet and talk to each other, and let's see if we can figure out a venue. Now, earlier in the show, I hinted that, I foreshadowed that we did find a lead for an actual venue. I want to shout out to Chris Baker. He is the fairly new CEO of the Tennessee Association of Broadcasters. Big shoes to fill from Whit Adamson, the previous.
Man. Yeah, it was great.
And Chris, what a friendly guy. He heard about our meeting. He said, "Hey, can I come over and eat some Nana pudding and then and make an offer for a place to meet?" I said, "Come on." So apparently, Tennessee Association of Broadcasters, they're in an office that has like a common conference room,
right?
But it's part of their rent. And so they said, "Look, as long as it doesn't conflict with somebody else scheduling the room, it's a huge conference room, and you guys, you have to cater some food in, pizza, whatever. And you can meet at the Tennessee Association of Broadcasters."
So we've got a place now that we can go to and meet in person that we can count on, which is a great thing. That was something we weren't expecting. So going forward, we will probably take them up on that several times. So
we will. And we just, we kind of keep our eye on the immediate COVID situation. If there's a hot spot, something like that, we
always got to be cognizant of what's going on with that, because you never know when it's going to show up in a different variant, in a different, it could be, it could come roaring back. You never know.
One thing I'll point out is that as we live our day-to-day lives, and y'all know this, but it's worth remembering. Like today, the 11 people were here. Nobody was wearing a mask. Everybody, seems vibrant and healthy, and people may have issues we don't know about. But remember, they have spouses, they have maybe relatives living in the house, or people that they need to go deal with. And so it's easy to think, hey, what's the problem? But we have to remember that what you see isn't always just who's affected.
Correct. That's correct. You got to remember those around you can be affected by this as well. So,
Chris Tarr, restarting Milwaukee, I don't know. Is this something you want to undertake, or do you have enough on your plate?
I don't think so. We had a member that was kind of a problem, but it did get to the point where I kind of carried the whole thing. I set up the program, set up the food, hosted the meeting, and I got burned out. And I think, and this is not COVID related, but I think that one of the problems we're running into with having in-person meetings is that we're all busy. We're not getting any less busy. If you're working in this industry, you're busy and you got a lot of stuff going on. And so it got to the point where it was kind of a chore getting these meetings together in person. Now, that's what I like about the Zoom meetings is they're at home or, wherever I'm at, I can just, get on the computer. And because, as you know, Kirk, there's a lot of times where I'm out traveling, so I can't make a meeting. If Milwaukee were to restart, it would have to be, somebody else carrying that torch at this point. But as I mentioned, we maybe had 3 or 4 active engineering members, and the rest are retired or life members. They had great input, and I was glad that they were there. But it also means that, they're retired. So they don't, really, they don't have the connections in the industry for programs. A lot of them did their own, which was fantastic. So, but they don't, they don't have a venue to offer or anything like that. So, it was difficult. It was very difficult. Let's say that. And I think that, go ahead.
No, on the topic of people being busy. Yeah, I know what you mean. And Carl and Chris, it just surprised me today how many people showed up for lunch. Honestly, I was expecting 5 people. That I would have been happy with 5 people showing up at my house. Now I'd send out emails with a Google Map link to show where my house is, with a bird's eye view picture, and I had drawn in, hey, here's how you enter. Little hard to find. You find my mailbox, but I don't live at my mailbox. My house is 400 feet past the mailbox. Here's where you go. One thing I did do is on the bird's eye view picture where I marked where you need to go, I put a big call out and pointed to the patio, to the deck, and I said, here's where the food is. Yeah, that's right.
All that
I made a big deal that there's going to be food, and
food definitely helps.
In addition to me, 10 people showed up. This house was full.
Yes,
it was. I mean, it was like
Here's-
a party.
It was.
Here's the question, though, Kirk.
Yeah. Go ahead, Chris.
the question is that going to be sustainable? That's the other thing. This is the first thing that you've put together, and there's food, and are you going to have that kind of turnout every time? And going back to COVID, I as I mentioned, I'm very gun shy. I haven't, fortunately, knock on wood, I haven't contracted it. I haven't been sick, but I am at a higher risk. I'm diabetic, so I have a compromised immune system. So I still am very cautious of that. And I think that, there are still some other people too. So with all of that being said, I do think that, there'll be some discussions with SBE about, if you want to do, if your chapter wants to be in person, that's great. But I think I think we're seeing even now on the national level with their meetings, a lot more flexibility to do it virtually. In fact, there was a couple of, back when I was on the board, and I think you were too, there were some new bylaws added that allowed for, voting and participating in the national board meetings virtually is kind of in response to this.
I'm glad you brought that up. And something that the Oregon chapter is doing, that I'm doing a meeting for them coming up, next week, is that they're meeting in person with a Zoom setup there, but they also have plenty of members. In fact, 2 other cities plus other members who either can't make it to the meeting or don't feel that it's a good risk for them to mingle. So it'll be I'll be on Zoom, but there will be people meeting live, plus other people who are remote on Zoom. So one of the interesting things, I think, is that this kind of helps us build our skills in these hybrid meetings where you're in person and on Zoom. I got to tell you, that's a harder trick to pull off than a Zoom meeting by itself or an in-person meeting by itself. Yeah. Hey, it's This Week in Radio Tech. It's episode 601. Shane Toven is with us with EMF. Also, Chris Tarr is here with Magnum Media. Carl Campbell is here with Salem Music Networks. And I'm here with Telos Alliance. We're going to take a quick break to talk about something that you need to know about. Everybody remembers the Henry Super Relay, right?
Yes, sir.
Everybody's installed those.
2 or 3 of them at the plant. Yep.
Carl, did you ever modify a cassette deck so that the capstan motor was turned on and off by the Henry Super Relay?
No, I don't believe I did that. No.
Well, that helped the disc jockeys, to do their telescoped air checks.
Oh yeah.
Well, anyway, but you had to have the type that had the piano key mechanical record button.
Right.
Anyway, well, guess what? The day of the Henry Super Relay, that may be a past. Well, now we're into LEDs. LEDs are everywhere. I'm staring at a bunch of them right now here with Carl. And the Henry Super Light is the replacement, there we go, for the Henry Super Relay. The Henry Super Light will run your on-air tally lights, your on-air LEDs over the door, outside the door, wherever that needs to go. It'll run that. And if you need more current, then this will provide. You can provide your own external power supply. I think up to 2 amps or so to go through this. Maybe it's an amp, 12 volts. But anyway, this will supply like half an amp to run some LEDs. This also will give you relay outputs, just as the old Henry Super Relay did. The Henry Super Light will give you normally closed and normally open contact closures. And this is really helpful for maybe a room where you have some speakers and you have an audio console that doesn't do muting. So maybe it's not, a broadcast style console. Maybe it's a, what do you call it?
A
PA console. Yeah. Or, I didn't name names like a Mackie or a Behringer type console, something like that. Or a Yamaha. These don't have on-air tally light. They don't know about that.
Designed for broadcast.
Well, this will help you do it. You can set this to either flash your on-air lights or they'll be on steady. Also, this has something, the Control Link I/O. And the Control Link I/O is simply RJ45 jacks, but in that you can connect, your Cat 5 cable to, but it's not carrying Ethernet. It's simply signaling from one unit to another. And on your screen, if you're watching our show, there's in the lower right-hand corner, you can daisy chain up to 4 of these Henry Super Lights together. This just makes the wiring easy and neat as a pin if you're installing the Super Lights together in the same place. Or even if they're separate, you can still, run some Cat 5 through the ceiling and you've got a much easier control I/O situation using that. Now, the Henry Superlight is not the only thing that Henry makes. They make a bunch of stuff. You need to go to their website and check out their whole catalog of products. They have mixers for sports broadcasting. They've got these amazing surge protectors, that's incredibly superior design. The website is henryeng.com. Henry, E-N-G, as in Henry Engineering. henryeng.com. And when you pick out the stuff you want, you know who you call to buy it. Call Broadcasters General Store. At their website, bgs.cc. The website has been revamped, looks even better. And of course, their phone number is 352-622-7700. I've been dialing that number for almost 40 years now. Broadcasters General Store. You know what they have there at BGS? They got sharp pencils. You know what I mean? Sharp pencils. And they also are really good at being able to tell you when delivery is, even during these supply chain difficulties. I work for Telos Alliance. Telos Alliance and BGS are in touch at least once a week, sometimes more, talking about when's delivery of this, when's delivery of that. And BGS is your point of contact to get that information and get the products that you want at a great price. So thanks a lot, BGS, at bgs.cc, Broadcasters General Store, for sponsoring our show. All right. Getting, and it doesn't have to be an SBE chapter we're talking about here. It could be an IEEE chapter. It could be an AES, Audio Engineering Society chapter. Here in Nashville, Carl, I guess I should fess up because I haven't told you this yet. Here in Nashville, I've had a few talks with some friends from AES to see if maybe we could hold a joint meeting. If they're meeting, they're interested in a lot of the same stuff we are.
That makes perfect sense. I think that a joint meeting would be a great idea. Great idea.
And our local AES chapter, they got connections to the money people. they get the best desserts over there at their place.
Well, that's a good thing. That's a great thing.
And they also sometimes meet at recording studios. Now, pre-COVID, they were meeting at recording studios and other nice venues. So anyway, I'll continue chatting with them if it's appropriate. We'll schedule our meeting with theirs.
Sounds like a great idea.
Well, that brings us actually to Chris and to Shane. Maybe I'll ask Shane first. Shane, your SBE chapter, you guys ever combine with any other professional groups to get more bang for the buck, so to speak?
Funny you should mention that, Kirk. So when I was the chair of Chapter 48, we were a joint SMPTE and SBE chapter. Now, that doesn't mean there was any kind of direct affiliation between the two, but we combined our meetings because, of course, it was a way to reach more kind of a critical mass in terms of, having meetings together. So that's actually a really good idea, and it's definitely worth doing.
Chris Tarr, what do you think about that idea?
Yeah, we did that. We did that a few times, and that's a very good idea, especially, again, the strength in numbers kind of thing. And with, our chapter being so small, that helped sometimes even being able to bring in guests and for presentations, the fact that there was enough people there to make that worthwhile. So that worked out really well.
Guests. Speaking of guests, so with the SBE, Chris Shearer and I do a webcast for SBE once a month. It's called the SBE Web Extra. And the idea is we really try to bring in guests who are interesting and have information to share, but who are maybe the kind of people that either couldn't or wouldn't take the time to go visit a bunch of SBE chapters. That they're going to give their talk once, and let's try to get this out to our SBE members. So that's actually worked out pretty well for that. I'm not sure how you could relate that to doing local meetings, but what I should pivot back to is the idea of meeting in person. Now, Chris, you brought up, hey, you had a good meeting today, Kirk, but can you continue that? And that's a really good question. I don't think we could continue it just based on, hey, let's get back together, everybody. Let's get the band back together. Let's have some food. Okay, yeah, you're right. That worked for getting people together. And I got to tell you, were people glad to see each other?
Oh man, yeah. It's been a great day. I mean, as far as seeing faces we haven't seen in person for over 2 years, and again, most of what we do is tell war stories, so it's, everybody's catching up on the latest thing that's going on with one another. It was a great meeting.
But I would agree that our next meeting couldn't be the same thing. We need to have a presentation of some kind.
Well, yes. And you've been stellar at bringing really good programs to the meetings, and that also motivates people to show up. What we end up talking about and who comes to speak to us. So that's been one of our hot points is being able to bring good people in to make presentations. So.
Well, you might remember that, and back when pre-COVID, we had Chris Tarr do a remote presentation for our group. And Chris, we had full attendance anyway.
That's right. And I did that. I did a couple more like that too. So, I think that's viable. And I think, and that started even, I think, before COVID, really. A lot of these presenters, didn't travel as much as they did. So, and we were, especially our chapter, we were pretty lucky in that we had Chicago and Fox Valley nearby. So a lot of times we all and we had our meetings on the same day. So we could get a presenter to come by live and hit all three. I think it was Fox Valley and Milwaukee on one day and then Chicago the next day. But in a lot of cases, if it was just somebody we wanted on our own, it wasn't always real convenient for them to fly in and just do our presentation. So we had a full setup in my conference room for video conferencing, and that worked out. We did that a lot, and it worked out really well.
Let me ask Shane something here, and you know what? I'm going to see what Chris has to add to it. It seems like when COVID started, and we all got in the swing of Zoom meetings and such, it seems like webinars became more popular. It seems like since COVID started, I've done a ton of webinars. SBE has been very active about continuing with webinars. And I guess, is there any sense that we're webinared out at this point? I don't think so, as long as we come up with continuing to address topics people are interested in. Well, Shane, what are your thoughts about as it relates to education? Because part of SBE, part of our mission is to educate our members, provide that opportunity to get information, to do your job better, to do maybe an upgraded job better, to increase your skills, to be more valuable to employers. Shane, do you think we've gotten better at that during COVID, or do you think maybe we're getting a little burned out on that at this point?
So I think, there is some amount of burnout on webinars, but they're part of the landscape now. They're here to stay. I don't think they're going anywhere anytime soon. Now, that said, I think there is a real desire, a real hunger among a lot of people to start getting back together again. I'll give you a prime example. I'm also on the board for the Association of Public Radio Engineers. They host the annual Public Radio Engineering Conference in Las Vegas. Well, obviously, when COVID hit and when NAB didn't meet or it didn't happen, it pretty much put the kibosh on that for a couple of years as well. Well, this past spring, we actually put together an in-person conference again, and but this time we actually had a full virtual component to it as well, where we were bringing in the presenters remotely, where we had attendees coming in remotely and asking questions, and it really, really went well. So I think honestly, that's going to be a part of the landscape for the foreseeable future. So,
I think you said something critical there, that people had an option of attending. Can you? I don't know. Are you at liberty to give me some numbers? How many people attended PREC in person and remotely?
Absolutely, yeah. So I think we had something like, I want to say 119 people attended in person, and about 30 attended remotely. As a board, we had no idea who was going to actually show up, but we were determined we were going to have a conference, whether 3 people showed up or 30 people showed up. And actually, the result was better than we ever could have expected.
Do you feel like those attending remotely, and maybe you can't speak for all of them broad brush style, but do you feel like they were serious about their attendance remotely?
Oh, Oh, absolutely. Well, and I mean, because it is a conference that people pay to attend, I mean, they had some skin in the game as well. So, and by the same token, we as a board wanted to make sure that that experience for them was basically as close to being in person as they could, minus the face-to-face and minus the food, basically.
Hey, well, this brings up a good tech question, and I'm glad we're going to get to talk about this, Shane, because this is a question for you. I noticed that the tech setup at the Public Radio Engineering Conference in Las Vegas. Normally, you've got a conference where you've got speakers with different laptops. Some have audio, some have video, some just have PowerPoint slides. Some have pre-uploaded their PowerPoint slides to your system. Maybe if you haven't, there's always people like me who say, no, I want to do my own slides because I got video, I got this, I got that. And where's my monitor for my speaker notes? What I'm saying is, even when everybody's just there in person, there's the typical challenges of getting that public address, out to all the eyeballs and ears of the people in attendance. It seems like when you added the remote people and the capabilities that need to be remote, it got real complicated. I saw you guys working really hard in your setup, and even after the show got going, ooh, got to correct this, ooh, got to correct that. Shane, would you talk to us a little bit about what presented the biggest challenge in getting remote people to be able to participate as well as local people, whether they were an attendee or whether they were a presenter? What was your biggest challenge or two there?
So I think the biggest challenge was at first figuring out just how we were going to pull it all together. I mean, yeah, we've got Zoom, but there's more to it than that. Thankfully, one of our board members is actually associated with the university, so they offered up their Zoom webinars platform, which worked out really well. But even with that, we still had to figure out, okay, how are we going to get the content in and out of this? How are we going to bring people in and out of all this? And it was interesting. So on the audio side of things, I actually had to take a couple extra buses off of my mixer and generate mix minuses for the sends to these to the remote attendees. That's not something I'm used to doing for a live in-person conference. You generally don't have to think about mix minus in that context, but when you're doing a hybrid event, you absolutely do. The other thing, of course, was all of the video integration. And I'll just give a shout out to Jim Gray and his team. They absolutely pulled it off and did a wonderful job with all of that. I mean, they handed me audio from the remote presenters. I handed them mix minus, and we were kind of working in tandem as a team. They focused on video, I focused on audio, I focused on the slide content, and just and some of the other technology elements, and it worked out really well. But it was a lot of work putting it all together, at least for the first time. But now that we've done it once, it should be a lot easier to do it the next time.
Chris Tarr, this concept of hybrid meetings where people can still attend remotely and still get a good experience, but you also have people who want to meet in person. Anything about that topic intriguing for you, or do you see an opportunity for some solutions that work well?
Oh yeah, I think that's going to be the way to go in the future. And to Shane's point, WBA has that kind of a setup for a long time. Now they didn't do this live, but they control all the microphones, computers. When you do a presentation at WBA, you don't bring your own computer. You bring the flash drive with the presentation on it, and they handle the screen changes and the microphones and the mixing and everything else. So it wouldn't be much to add a stream to that, and to be able to do that kind of interactively. So I do think that if you're not thinking about that, you should be, because I think that will increase the attendance to your meetings. Because I can't believe I'm the only person who's going, well, I'm just, now WPA I'll go to, and, there'll be some things that I will go to, but I'm not going to go nearly the amount of meetings and things that I did before. So, I think that is an attractive option and something that you should consider doing.
All right. Hey, it's This Week in Radio Tech, episode 601. We're talking about restarting SBE meetings and how meetings have changed since we've been doing the remote thing. A lot of folks, they have a desire to get back together, to see each other. Certainly, I felt that at NAB and at the Public Radio Engineering Conference back in April in Las Vegas. Our show is brought to you in part by Angry Audio. And they have a lot of cool stuff at Angry Audio. In fact, I wonder if, Chris Tarr, you would participate for a minute in that discussion. And hey, Shane, you jump in too. Using products from Angry Audio, whether it's these Studio Hub adapters, love these things. You can build a whole studio and not have to plug in the soldering iron once, to something that'll save your bacon, like the headphone disconnector. You got somebody gets up from their talent position and as the talent, they forgot to take their headphones off. Well, you won't destroy the headphone jack anymore. Chris, what from Angry Audio is one of your favorite things? What do you like from there?
Oh boy, what don't I like? Well, obviously the Studio Hub stuff. That's all I use now. But I'll tell you what, I was really impressed with the build quality of their distribution amplifiers. I have a couple of them in service. They are so rugged and clean sounding, and they're really built well for high RF environments. The sucker's heavy. I mean, they're not putting in just metal, and sheet metal and aluminum and stuff. These things are substantial. And, they've got the Studio Hub connectors on the back, built-in silent sensor, LEDs on the front. I mean, it is, and I'm not a big fan of distribution amplifiers. I try to avoid them, but not these. I mean, they are just so clean sounding, and, I don't really worry about caps drying up and noises coming into them, kind of like the old ones that we're all used to. This is a very substantial product. So and I've used some of the other products that he has too, like the pods for the headphone controller. Same thing. I mean, these things are built really, really well, and he designs them for, I don't want to say audiophile quality, but pretty close. I mean, he really sources the components that are going to make the audio sound good and last a long time. So I've been a big fan of everything he sells, really. But, all the Studio Hub lines, and, just if you get a chance, pick up one of those DAs physically. You'll see what I'm talking about.
Well, every one of their distribution amps, Chris, is not molded. What's the word I'm looking for when you route something out? Is routed out of a solid block. Machined. Every one of the distribution amps is machined from a solid block of engineers' hopes and dreams. That's why they're
there you go.
And we're talking about Angry Audio. The website is angryaudio.com. And please check out their stuff. When you call your dealer to order something that Angry Audio makes, make sure you tell them, hey, dealer, I don't want a substitute. No. I want this thing from Angry Audio. angryaudio.com. Check it out. Hey, our show is also brought to you by Josh Bone and the terrific service called Max Connect Wireless. Here's Gary Morrill to tell you about it.
I'm Gary Morrill, Midwest Regional Director of Engineering for Alpha Media. When I first spoke with Josh Bone about Max Connect, he told me they'd work great for remote transmitter sites where connectivity was a challenge. And he's absolutely right. We even have sites where we're using this as a backup to our STL using Max Connect's dual carrier option, and it works perfectly. We also have times where we need to be able to get out to a venue where it's kind of challenging because everybody and his brother is trying to stream video at the same time, like at a big sporting event. And you know what? Our data gets through every time because it's prioritized packet data. It works for us. It'll work for you. Max Connect. Check it out.
Hey, I got one right here too. And these do work where other stuff just doesn't. Check it out. Max Connect Wireless. We'll have a link in the show notes. There's the website, and you can choose your favorite carrier, AT&T, T-Mobile, Verizon, Sprint, and whatever you think is going to work for you. There are agreements. Josh Bone has agreements with each of those. All right. Hey, we got to wrap the show up. It's time for the tip of the week. And let's see, how quick do you think Shane Toven can think on his toes to bring us a tip? Shane, you go to transmitter sites. You're all over the place. Surely you have come across something in the last few days or weeks that you'd like to tell us about that will help us out.
Yeah, I have actually, and it's about troubleshooting intermittent issues. Just take it one step at a time, break it into parts, and find out where the problem doesn't happen anymore. So start at one end, start at the other, meet in the middle.
Actually, that's good advice, and I'll just dovetail with that. Yesterday, I was tasked with troubleshooting a problem at our station in Hawaii. The symptom was the station on the FM transmitter sounded fine. Except we think there was no disc jockey voice on the station when our DJ did her live breaks. But the stream was the exact opposite. On the stream, all we were hearing was her doing live breaks. Is that weird? Oh, no. On the air, we did hear her doing that. And the long and the short of it, this announcer didn't have the automation system assigned to program bus 1 or bus 2. And the Omnia 7 processor, every time she would put the automation on the air, not assigned in bus 1 or 2, the meters were dead, the Omnia 7 would say, hey, my AES input has gone away. Let's see if there's something on the analog input. Oh, there is. Happened to be direct from the automation, not through the board. Oh, there is. Well, I'll just go to that. So there'd be a few seconds of dead air, and then the Omnia 7 would switch over to its backup analog input. And so what a strange symptom, especially to get somebody to tell you the wrong symptom, remotely. Oh, gosh.
I'll dovetail on that and say, just never assume. Never assume.
Oh, my gosh. Yes, exactly. Chris Tarr, what's your tip of the week for us?
Sure. Well, I'll add on to that. Be sure to, when you can, document, the program flow of everything in your plant, not only to the transmitter, but to your automation systems as well. And if you can, find patch points where you can monitor that, either, through like a Pura silent sensor or something like that, so you can visually see it. It's great if you have, Axie and you can stream it and hear it. That solves a lot of issues. I was able to really quickly determine I had a processor fail because of that. I went, okay, it goes through here, and I could follow the checklist and go, okay, audio goes from here to here to here. The last common point, because the stream is still on, the radio station isn't, there's no pilot. I was able to pretty quickly track down that it was the processor that was the issue. But it was because I had those test points to check, and I could monitor, and I could, because I had a tuner in that market, I could see if the pilot was on and off and those sorts of things. So, it's really, we're doing more and more remote troubleshooting these days. So anything you can do to really break those down into small pieces will help you in the end.
I like that. That's really good. And documentation. Oh man, that is one of my downfalls. We've got a show coming up, Chris, in the next couple of weeks. A guy named Chuck Condren is going to join us, and he's going to talk about Visio and how he documents things pretty quickly and easily with Microsoft Visio. So maybe we can all learn something there. I certainly can, because that's one of my downfalls. All right. Hey, we got to go. I want to thank Carl Campbell for being here today. Carl, the chapter chair of the Nashville SBE chapter.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
All right. We got to bake some cookies.
Yeah, we do.
All right. Shane Toven, thank you for being here as well, for joining us from Laramie.
Thank you for inviting me, Kirk.
All right. It's good to see you. And Chris Tarr, thank you as always for being here. Really appreciate you, sir.
Always good to see you.
And Suncast, our producer, did a great job. I know it was complex with this 2-shot and Shane being here, and Chris. Wow. Thanks a lot, Suncast, for getting all this together. We really appreciate you. And again, next week, I think it's next week, Chuck Condren is going to be our guest from Memphis, and he's got some great ideas about documentation. Thanks to all our sponsors. Please patronize them and let them know that you heard about them on this show, This Week in Radio Tech. We'll see you next week. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.